Okay, this second short video is going to go through the audience analysis assignment that you're completing this week online. So as you can see, the PDF has been loaded to the D2L shell, and there is a location for you to upload this assignment. So instead of emailing anything, you will be uploading an actual document this time. So if we open up the assignment sheet, what you'll see is that we're focusing specifically on all of the pieces of audience, so audience, purpose, context, culture that were listed in the book. So make sure that you've watched the introduction to what is business writing that lists out the 5 pieces that are important that were mentioned in both pieces of our chapter this week, and that you've read all of the material that you need to before you start this particular assignment. So the first level, we're going to focus specifically on audience analysis, and so we're going to compare and contrast the construction of 2 audiences, or the expectations for 2 YouTube videos and who they think their audience is. So I want you to understand how businesses make their decisions. So the 2 YouTube channels that we're using are actual channels, and they're actually making money off of these. We're going to use Wisecrack's Thug Notes and Crash Course's Literature channel. Both of these focus on literature in very specific ways. So is this a lit class? No. Do I care what books you pick? No. What we want to focus on is what decisions about audience have been made by these 2 channels, how are they structuring that audience, and then what does that tell us, and how does that make sense to us, and what is it that we need to know about this whole thing. Both of these channels are businesses. They have decisions that they make about branded image, language, and content appropriate for the expected audience. These channels make serious money. The Green brothers do nothing but vlog and write books at this point, and they're funded by PBS, and they're funded by publishers. Thug Notes is the same way. Wisecrack has multiple channels that cover a myriad of topics at this point because they made so much money off of Thug Notes, because they do this deconstruction of novel essentially very, very well. So what you want to do in level 1 is you're going to watch 1 video by Thug Notes and 1 video by Crash Course. At the very bottom of this, and you'll see it soon, I have found a lot of the matching books that they've listed. So I want you to pick the same book. Doesn't matter if you've read it before, it doesn't matter if you like literature or not. What we want to focus on is what decisions have they made to brand these videos in a very specific way. What makes them literature reviews? What makes them credible? What doesn't make them credible? What determines who their audience is? You really need to note what do they focus on and how do they focus on it, because both of them make decisions that work really, really well, and both of them make decisions that influence who is going to watch that particular video and what that audience knows about higher education, about literature analysis, about what it means to speak like an academic writer, what kind of content comes along with academic writing, or what kind of content needs to be conveyed in various situations. So in this case, as a business, how are they communicating content in very specific ways to build the business branding of their images? I really, really, really do not want a book report. I do not want you to tell me about these books. I've read them, it's fine. Actually, I haven't read a lot of them. But what I do want is, what are the creators, designers, writers, researchers, educational professionals, what decisions are they making? How does that relate to literary analysis? How does that make to content in relation to business writing? And what does that tell us, the viewer, about who the creators think the audience is, how they think the creators are, the audiences are consuming this particular information? In both cases, you need to be as specific with the details about the audience as you possibly can. So I don't want you to just cover, here's who the audience is. I want you to actually lay out, and so I've laid it out here for you. Who is the expected audience? What do we know about them? And what are the clues that tell us that is the audience? There's going to be a lot of ways that the audience for both of these videos is the same, and a way that the audience is different. The vernacular that the 2 presenters choose to use is not the only clue as to who is going to fall into which camp. And the vernacular that they choose to use influences how they choose to make other decisions to brand what their videos look like. So you're going to see that audience ties into context, audience ties into purpose, audience ties into scope, audience ties into medium. They all influence each other. None of these live in a vacuum. So tell me more about the audiences. Tell me more about the context. Yes, I know it's YouTube, but beyond that, how does the channel function? How is the channel branded? How is this information put together? What decisions are they actually making in the video to build the brand? And why are they making those decisions for that audience, for that purpose, for that scope, for that medium? Same thing with purpose. What is the purpose of this video? Yes, they're doing literature analysis. What is the purpose of that on YouTube? And how is that influencing the decisions that they're making about some of the ways that they're putting this together, about the format, about how much time they spend on different sections, about the content. So again, not a book report, but they're making content decisions based on their understanding of audience, context, purpose, scope, and medium. So how does that influence purpose in a very specific way that influences some of these others and purpose's relationship with these others? Next is scope. So what is the scope? What can they cover? What can't they cover? And finally, medium. So yes, they've chosen YouTube. Why? What are the limitations? What are the advantages? How does that change the accessibility? How does that change the circulation? Where can this be used because of that particular medium? I want to know all of those things. So you're going to submit 5 to 7 sentences. If you go above the 7, that's absolutely fine. We're going to attempt to be concise. For each of the parts, you need to also tell me how they all interrelate with each other. What you'll then need to do is have a 5 to 7 sentence reflection on what you learned about the interplay of audience, context, scope, purpose, and medium, and how that's going to influence your own writing going forward, specifically in the business world. So how does the interplay between all of these different ideas, especially now that you've seen it and you've picked it apart in a product that already exists, how are you understanding the interaction differently? The second piece is an audience design project. So now that you've written your reflection, you've kind of had a chance to think about how a business has created and branded audience in specific ways, you're going to try it out yourself. So after writing your reflection on what you learned, I want you to design questions. You can do this in either a list, which would obviously be fairly boring, so think of what that's going to tell you about your audience. You can do it with graphics, with a Prezi, with an infographic. Obviously, I have huge loves of Prezis and infographics. PowerPoints. I do not like PowerPoints, but a lot of businesses still rely on PowerPoints for very specific reasons, and PowerPoints can brand businesses in very specific ways. So PowerPoints can still be really powerful. Or anything of your choosing to aid yourself and fellow students of this course with effectively writing to the interplay of audience, context, purpose, scope, and medium. I told you we're focusing on these 5 things. So you're going to create a list of questions, a list of guidelines, a graphic that walks you through the interplay, images that walk you through the interplay, whatever you can think of that's hopefully creative and not just a list, that is supposed to be meant for other students in this class. So what can you do with what you've learned, and how can you take that forward in a very usable manner? So do I want a PowerPoint that's 10 slides long? No. Do I want a PowerPoint that's maybe 3 or 4 slides long and really gets at the interplay between these different ideas? Sure. A Prezi that gets at the interplay of these different ideas? Absolutely. An infographic? Fantastic. You guys need to think of what form or what medium have you always wanted to explore, and now this is a low-risk chance for you to explore that. What I really want you to keep in mind for a project like this is moving forward, and as we get towards the end of the semester, you can use these projects and these ideas that you've put together and make a digital portfolio for yourself. So you have a website that's all about your awesomeness that you can add the URL to at the bottom of your cover letters. So when you send your application to businesses and they actually look you up, what they see are your graphic representations of, in this case, audience design. So you can use this moving forward depending on the medium that you pick. Most of these mediums will easily translate into a WordPress site eventually because WordPress is free, so if that's what you want to build your portfolio in. But what you want to think about is how well can you design it now? Who is your accidental secondary audience if you want to put together a digital portfolio for yourself, which again, I highly recommend. You don't want potential employers to find Facebook. You want them to find your chosen spaces, your curated sites that show your awesomeness the way that you want them to see your awesomeness. So take a project like this and really think about it. So I've given you most of the week to work on the design project so that you can really think about, how do I want this to look? Where do I want it to look? Where do I want to put it? If you have any questions about either parts of these assignments, please let me know. Again, you do want to tweet this week, so feel free to tweet about the assignments, tweet as you're working through this. Send me a tweet, obviously, and add my handle if you have questions about what design medium to choose. As long as you have an idea of how you want to represent the interplay, I can definitely point you in some directions with some free sources that you can play around with. And that'll get you started on what you want to do. So 2 assignments this particular week. You're going to have one that's more written and one that is more designed. I have the assignment built out so that 2 assignments can be uploaded, and they can be uploaded at different times. So you'll upload the Word document to the first assignment, and then for the second assignment you'll upload, a URL or the appropriate medium, a PNG file, a JPEG, a PDF. Depends on what pulls down. You'll upload that second, and the second piece is due Sunday by midnight. Again, if you have any questions, send me an email or send me a tweet. I'll see you guys online.